Hello and good morning, everybody. It's me, Julian. And today I would like to talk about what you might sort of vulgarly call the power of reinvention. By which I mean the extent to which we should not only always try to begin anew, create new beginnings for ourselves, but also the extent to which I do very strongly believe that life gives us an opportunity to create ourselves, to write ourselves into existence, or as Thomas Mann put it, to live our life as if it were a great work of art. I think that the dual poles of will, on the one hand, the ability to assert oneself in the world, as Nietzsche put it, but vice versa, the ability to dream up a life for oneself, is actually what it means to be free. Which is to say, freedom isn't just simply the ability to do what one wants, but perhaps more importantly, to impose strict limitations upon oneself and decide what it is that one does not want to do so that one can do something. As Chesterton put it, every act of will is an act of self-limitation, which is another way of saying that we have, on the one hand, the opportunity to invent ourselves, as it were, but it is also, in some sense, a burden placed upon us. I think this is ultimately what Kierkegaard meant when he said that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. And you may have experienced this in your own life. I certainly have. I remember, especially when I was younger, just lying on the floor, throwing a tennis ball in the air, thinking to myself, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what is it that I actually want to accomplish? Because so many of the things that seemed open to me seemed not very interesting. Which isn't to be ungrateful, but I worried that unless I had the will to do something meaningful, life would simply pass me by. I was very restless and very discontent. There was always that nagging, somewhat hysterical question, who am I to other people? But perhaps more importantly, who am I to myself? And so what I'd like to do in this video is give you some personal reflections, but also some philosophical ones, on the nature of self-invention, the way in which we stage ourselves for the world, but also present ourselves to ourselves, and how perhaps in so doing you can incrementally overcome the idea that perhaps you haven't done something, which is to say, I want to encourage you to keep on trying to reinvent yourself and to do new things. As the sculptor Giacometti put it, one of my favorite quotes, we have gone too far and yet not nearly far enough. And perhaps that's also true in life. Every step you take is something that you've done that has gone too far but not nearly far enough. It is both the youngest day of your life and the oldest, as it were. And I'd like to begin briefly by saying that what it means to be a writer, a thinker, a creative, if you will, to employ a modern term, is to constantly reassess where you are, to think about where you're going. As Camus put it, an intellectual is simply someone who has a mind which watches itself. And there's something very pleasurable about this. This is why Lacan says that you should never betray your symptom, that you should have fidelity or loyalty to your symptom. The symptom is that which you can never complete. It is that which is never finished, the elusive object of your satisfaction or desire, as it were. In a sense, this is true for subjectivity. You're chasing an idea of yourself that doesn't really exist, and perhaps that's the whole point. I recently watched Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, a wonderful film, by the way, in which at a certain point Benicio del Toro's character says that the whole point of life is to live free from fear. Kierkegaard put it like this. He's always very eloquent. He said that to lose oneself for a moment is to risk something, but to not lose oneself is to risk everything. I think I may be paraphrasing here, but his basic point is that you have to try, you have to take risks, you have to do new things, you have to constantly reinvent yourself. Kierkegaard characterized this as a leap of faith. You take a leap of faith into the unknown, and in this loss, something is gained. You have to step into the unknown so as to find something. Even Hegel, who's perhaps the least self-help oriented thinker imaginable, has a passage about spirit in which he says that you cannot simply stand at the side of the water or the pool and think about swimming. You can only learn it in the act of doing. And I think that is what it means to grow old. And it starts even at a very young age. You could be 8 years old and experience nostalgia for being 6. Is that sense of being in the current of life, being swept up in it. And on the one hand, relishing the possibility for self-invention and indeed reinvention, but also finding some form of contentment, some peace with who you are and what's important to you. There's a wonderful passage in Thomas Mann's memoirs in which he says that as a young man, he played a game, and a very silly game, as games are, of course. And he said that he would pretend to be a little prince or a lord from some unknown land, and he would walk around feeling all lordly about himself. And the point wasn't to make other people feel small. The point for him was to find a way to be big, to feel like he was someone, like he was inhabiting a certain role, a social situation in which he could stage his own existence. And I think it's actually quite courageous that he talks about it in his memoirs, because it's something that is hard to admit to, that we do create fantasies for ourselves. Lacan puts it like this. He says, fantasy is not how you escape reality, but fantasy is how you enter into reality. Which is to say, it is through the fantasy frame that you have access to reality. It's actually quite an important thought, I think, because what it suggests is that the way in which you frame your reality not only changes it, but it changes you. Your fantasy frame can dictate the way in which you experience your surroundings. For example, a photographer. A photographer goes out into the world looking for images. He carries with him his camera, which therefore gives him license. It allows him to go outside and witness things and observe them. Now, when it comes to journalism, this could be a political act, but it could also be a private act, I think, of emancipation, in which you go out into the world and experience the world as an aesthetic encounter, something to be seen and recorded, not simply to be a passive observer of it. And I've mentioned this before, but the same can be true if you're someone who likes to write in your notebook. You go outside and you think, what is it that I want to write down today? This is what it means to have a fantasy frame. It's not simply to imagine yourself to be someone who you are not. It's to stage an encounter with the world, to go out into the world with a sense of purpose and meaning. And to go back to Lacan's maxim that you must never betray your desire, your fidelity to your desire, this is essentially what he means. The fantasy frame that you sculpt for yourself, that you inhabit, that you use as a tool to access and shape reality, and thereby yourself, is something that you can remain loyal to. It's like every day you begin anew. You have a meaning, a purpose, a filter through which you process why you live. In a recent interview, Zizek talked about this, actually. He said that for him, writing and philosophy was a way to validate his existence. I think this was actually a very honest point that he was making, that unless he writes, unless he commits his mind, the application of thought to the world and to the things in it, he doesn't feel like himself. He doesn't feel, to put it somewhat darkly, like he's allowed to live. And so he keeps on working because it gives him meaning and purpose, but thereby also creates something for others. And whilst I certainly wouldn't suggest that you have to create something in order to be human or be validated as a person, it's that feeling that unless you do something, you haven't fully lived, that I think is very human in all of us. Unless I've written something or cooked something or had a conversation today, I don't feel like I really lived today. For me, it's quite simple. For me, I want to go out into the world and watch as many films as I can and read as many books as I can and travel and listen to music and write about them and think about them and apply thought to it, which, to just share for a moment, it does take time, right? When you say, I want to think about things, I want to write an article or a book or something, you have to apply yourself. It's not something that just happens. It takes a certain discipline, which is always a way of doing one thing and not other things. And the same way that love is being with one person and not other people. And yet in this process of focus, of applying yourself and of doing something with a certain commitment, there's an enormous amount of satisfaction to be found. At least for me, there is a kind of peace in it. You're not just searching for your thing. You already have it and you carry it within you and you go out into the world and you're able to apply it. So I'd like to conclude briefly by talking about how you might be able to do this in your own life, because I realize that you are in different stages of your life. You might be a student who's still thinking about what it is that they want to do or what kind of job they'd like to have, or you might be in a later stage of your life and reflecting on what you might want to do in retirement, etc. But essentially these questions are very similar. It's a constant question of who am I and what is it that I would like to do with the time that is given to me. It's just that the perspective changes and the horizon changes. What I would do, and this might sound banal, is I would actually give myself time. I actually think this is like one of the most important things. To actually just give yourself time. It's something I really try to do. It's a luxury, of course. Not everyone has access to it. But if you give yourself time to make some mistakes, to try some things that don't work out, to read a book you don't like, or to take up a new hobby that doesn't click with you, if you put yourself in contingent situations, by which I mean situations in which you might have an accidental discovery, a passion, a future partner, you'll be surprised how, in a sense, not to sound too mystical, it will find you when you are ready for it. I think this is actually immensely important, that we put ourselves in situations that seem to be lacking in overt purpose. Like when you go to your local community center, when you go to a book reading group, when you go to a gaming center, when you go to your local market, when you go to the library, when you allow yourself some time, when you grant yourself the gift of time to meet other people, to talk with them. I'm always surprised how if I go out by myself, I'll actually make friends along the way pretty easily. Like you're just sitting somewhere and someone happens to be sitting close to you and they're reading something and you ask them what they're reading. I think the same is true for finding a partner. I think that the more you try to find a partner, the more difficult it can be and the more painful. But in a sense, when you're happy being by yourself, when you're content with who you are, which is to say when it feels momentarily like you don't need a partner, is often when life presents you with one. It's certainly been true in my life that I think I found a partner exactly when I felt like I wasn't looking for one. Now this may be anecdotal, indeed it is, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to encourage you to give yourself the gift of grace. To not be so hard on yourself, to not try to rush things, to realize that you are so much younger than you think. Like, there is time. And the whole point of reinvention is that it's a constant thing. It doesn't have to happen right now. It doesn't have to happen once and for all. It's a constant process by which you can grow and think about what it is you'd like to do and who you are. And then you can challenge yourself. You can learn new things. You can learn a new language or move country or try a different job. I do think that's immensely important, to give oneself time. Time is necessary to do anything meaningful. And if we rush, I think we end up stuck in pseudo-activity, in which it might feel temporarily like we've done something, but actually we've simply remained paralyzed. And so I'd like to conclude by repeating Kierkegaard's maxim that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, which is to say it is the idea that we could do anything, and yet the question is, what is it that we should do with our lives? And perhaps this is also what it means to be alive. And it is a privilege, therefore, to be able to answer that question, to have a certain degree of freedom with which to shape your life and to live it like a work of art, like a great story yet to be told. And so that's my reflection for today. I think the question, how can we find meaning and make meaning in our lives, is indelibly tied to who we are and who we imagine ourselves to be. So thank you for listening today. I hope that this wasn't too abstract, but it is something I think about a lot, and I've recently been trying to address the things that keep me up at night in a way that hopefully feels honest and transparent for you, and hopefully valuable. Thank you so much. And as always, if you'd like to support this channel, please do consider becoming a patron. It helps a lot. But until then, happy reading, happy writing, happy living, as it were. And if not happy, then at least enjoy the struggle. Enjoy your symptom. See you next week. I will end with a Freud quote. The point of psychoanalysis is to go from unbearable hysteria to commonplace unhappiness. Enjoy your commonplace unhappiness, as it were. See you next week.